guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel, Dark Flames. In today's episode, I will be discussing my alter ego, Taya. So if you are interested, grab a cup of tea like mine's right here and we'll get started. Okay, so most of you may be wondering, what is an alter ego? An alter ego is basically having a second sense of yourself or having an alternate version of yourself when you find yourself in a situation. For me personally, I'm not sure when I created Taya. I'm not sure like how old I was, but I think that I remember having instances where I remember encounters of having like an out-of-body experience or having a sense of doing something that I didn't feel like I would necessarily do because it didn't line up with my core values. I would have anger issues. Sometimes I would say things I didn't mean purposely to hurt people, and that's just not who I am or who I represent. And throughout life, I have adapted certain characteristics. Like people told me like, oh, you're a bossy person, or I've been told that I can be quite negative. And it was just kind of a wake-up call for me to kind of realize that that wasn't a characteristic that I lined up with myself. I believe that I created Taya because I constantly felt threatened. In surviving puberty, I distinctively discuss a situation that happened with me in a pool and a boy who touched me inappropriately. And if you read parts 1 and part 2, you know how that ends. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will place the links down below for you guys to read it, because I will be talking about that in further discussion in my next episode. But basically, I feel like I adapted characteristics. I remember when I was younger, I would always watch TV shows where girls beat up boys. Like I remember watching Recess, and I remember always being drawn to the character Spinelli, or Sister. They were always mean to boys. They were always mean to Roger, and I think that that was something that I kind of started lining up with myself. When I felt threatened, or when I felt annoyed, or when I felt this way, something inside of me changed and these characteristics started to surface. I think that when I adapted these, something usually triggered it, whether it was being touched inappropriately and not liking that, or whether it was being frustrated and having an argument with my sister, or getting angry or feeling sad. There was a sense of hopelessness that took place that made Taya emerge, and it still currently happens, just not as frequently. I think that when there's a sense of hopelessness, there's two ways that that situation can go. Either you react to the situation without thinking, you just take actions and you direct yourself down a path that maybe you are no longer in control of the bus. Like you literally put yourself on autopilot and you just react in a way that you feel like will get you out of that situation fastest. If you're feeling hopeless and you're feeling a sense of discomfort, you start to cling to a reality. You'll start to create a fantasy to make you feel more comfortable in that situation. I remember in a situation where I would get into an argument with a classmate, and my reaction was to punch her in the mouth. And I know now as an adult and as a person that that was not the proper reaction, but it was something that I did to just get me out of that situation. Even though it escalated things to a point where they didn't need to go, that was a trigger for me. It was a reaction for me. Someone yelling at me, someone getting in my face, someone saying something negative to me. I didn't like it, and so I reacted to it instead of changing who I was and what I allowed to bother me. That brings me to the opposite side, the positive side of feeling hopelessness or losing hopelessness and feeling kind of like a sense of helplessness and anger and sorrow, you can change your perspective. And by changing your perspective, you can overcome what it is that bothers you. So when I created Taya, I didn't do it intentionally. It wasn't something that I was like, hey, let me sit down and create this person. It was Taya's always been someone I felt like she protects me. When I feel upset, when I feel like I'm in a situation that I may not want to be in, I find comfort in her coming out and handling the situation, even if it does get me into a worse situation or a worse position. It's just that's just a reaction. It's not really logical. It's just something that happens. A trigger. Sometimes I feel like I've been in situations where I allowed Taya to take over for too long. In aspects of my life, working at jobs that were unfulfilling, I got comfortable sitting in the back seat of my life. So I look up, I was not really happy. I wasn't satisfied with my life. I look up, I allowed Taya to take part and do something, and I allowed her to kind of take control. I now have a sense of awareness that, hey, I'm not happy. This is why you see so many people that are depressed. I feel like everyone has an alter ego. Everyone has an excuse. I created Taya as an excuse to get away from something. And that doesn't mean that she is negative. It's just that when I created her, my intentions weren't positive in branding her and making her. It was, I feel dangerous. I need to get out of this situation. I can't handle it. It was all, I can't, I won't, I don't. It was all negative intentions in creating this alter ego. That's something I want to change, and that leads me to my next point. What benefits come from having an alter ego? A few months ago, I would probably say none, because based off of that alter ego I created, she represents a lot of pain and suffering. She comes out only in negative times, so I associated her with negative intentions. And after doing my banishing spell, I came across a book in my Kindle. And because I was going to be writing, I had the idea to make an episode about alter egos. The title of the book intrigued me. The title of the book is called The Alter Ego Effect. And it's by Todd Herman. I think it came out earlier this year. And this book, I haven't finished it yet, but it has already changed my outlook on how I view Taya. In his book, he basically expresses how to use alter egos in a positive light. He mentions about how Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, and he named a whole list and a whole array of people who have these personas that they step into when they're about to do something. And he even talks about how he himself has multiple alter egos depending on what situation he's in. And that kind of got me thinking, could Taya be a positive influence in my life? Can I give her basically a reality makeover, something that I was doing within myself and within my craft? And that's when I started to dive into this book. And I'm going to actually put a link in the description box below of where you can get the book on Amazon or on Kindle. And I really recommend it because it really has touched me and opened my eyes to something, and it's changed my perception of who I am as a person, because Taya is a part of me. And I think that I can learn from her. I can take her attributes. Like, even though her actions were not the best, her intentions were to protect. And if I can take that and change my perception and change how I handle a situation, ultimately I'm changing myself. And I think that in his book he talks about thinking about, or maybe it was his podcast, I can't remember, but I remember him speaking about thinking of an alter ego in yourself as a Venn diagram. On one side of the circles you have who you are, who Trinity is, and the characteristics that you've put into building your identity. And on the flip side, you have Taya, which is your alter ego that you've created. And you have the characteristics that you put into your alter ego. And you can always change your alter ego or alter it because it is an entity and intentions that you are making up. So I feel like by me changing my characteristics of Taya and changing my perceptions of Taya and how she reacts, but still keeping all of the good qualities that I put into her, somewhere in between, you are reborn into a new self. You have a new clarity and you can perform much better in a way that you never thought possible. And that book really just made it come all together for me. I don't think I would have ever placed Taya as an alter ego. I kind of just always said it was like a split personality of myself, or something that happens. It's what happens. She comes out when I black out. She's the one that takes over. There were many different ways that I associated her with myself. And I was really touched and moved after I've read some of this book and heard about these perceptions and these ideas and these concepts that are just really mind-blowing is the only word that comes to mind. And I think that I'm going to do another episode in the future about what characteristics Taya has. I know this is a good topic. I could talk forever, but I see that it's 13 minutes and I try not to go over 15 minutes. So I just want to leave you guys with this thought. As long as you're honest with yourself and you can be truthful and stand by the characteristics and the qualities that you portray out in this world, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter what you do, you can always stop and acknowledge that you're doing something wrong. And by acknowledging it, you can ultimately grow and mature. And by growing and maturing, your perception of life can drastically change. You'll start to see the world through a different lens, and it's nothing better than taking off a mask, in a sense, and seeing your life for what it could be if you just changed and grew and progressed through life happily. It is something that is possible. No matter how dark a day may be, I feel like a lot of what's happened here has changed me, and I'm growing and I'm learning, and I'm hoping that my words are resonating with you and you stop and think and grow along with me, because that's what life is all about. It's about leaving your mark. It's about being remembered, and it's about helping as many as you can in the short time span that we have. With that, I want to say thank you for watching my 4th episode, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Thank you for watching. I'm so goofy, y'all. I'm sorry.